Today we are representing South Carolina with this Piggly Wiggly shirt. Hello? Wanna say hi? Yeah? Hello everyone, I have a very naked cat on my lap, and today we are going to be going through my physical TBR. So when it comes to my bookshelves, they're actually not that big. I don't have all that many books. I mentioned in my new to booktube tag that for the most part, any of the physical books that I have are either from the library or come from used book sites, or they're from the thrift store. So most of these are thrift store finds, and if they're not, they're probably from like used book sites and stuff, and I recognized it, saw it for a really good price and grabbed it. So yeah, let's go through them so I can hold myself accountable and actually read the books that I have. Gumby! Yeah, let's go through them together. Can you hear her? She's going in on making biscuits. Hold on. She's working so hard. You look so glorious. Yeah, so remember like 2 seconds ago when I said, I don't think I have that many. There's 42 of them. I know! 42 books I haven't read on my shelves. That's way more than I expected there to be. There you go. Can you see the scope of these? God, she's like a little cryptid. Let's go through them. What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna start taking off of these piles and going through them one by one. You'll get the satisfaction of watching these piles dwindle over the course of the video. So first up, we've got The Little Prince. I've somehow never read this. This will take me approximately 45 minutes to read. So I'm probably just gonna knock this out soon, but yeah, never read it somehow. Next I've got these two, which are the sequels to Over the Woodward Wall by A. Deborah Baker is the pseudonym used on it, but it's Shannon McGuire. These are the tie-in novellas to Middle Game, and I've read the first one and really enjoyed it, and I've got the other two. I got these used. This one was a library book, I believe, which is very cute. And then this one, thought I got the hardcover. They ended up sending me an ARC of it, so I have the dissatisfaction of having all of these Tor paperbacks minus this one, and I know I'm gonna end up finding the hardback version of this, if anything just for the aesthetics, but also because I don't know how uncorrected this was. So yeah, I'll be able to knock these out pretty quick. Also, I think in keeping with short books, so one thing you need to know about me is I moved after 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, and halfway through 9th grade, which means in all of these different school systems, there's a lot of books that I just ended up not reading that everyone and their grandma has read in school. And then on the flip side, I read The Old Man and the Sea 3 separate times and Romeo and Juliet twice, I think. Anyway, I never ended up reading Night. And I found this copy at a thrift store, again for like $1. And then I got home and realized that they donated this with like the school notes from some kid, and I am so charmed by that. So like right here it just feels a little bit thicker than the rest of it because there's just a bunch of post-it notes. I'm gonna keep them in there. I'm gonna read them along with reading the book because man, that's why I love getting used books. This is so cute to me. But yeah, this is less of a fun read and more of a read that I know I should experience because I never did in school, and this one feels important. There's a lot of school books that I'm okay with having missed, but I do want to read that one. This is another thrift find. This is, I think, like a middle grade book, but it's called The Wild Robot, and I was just so taken with this cover. I just think it's so cute. And according to Goodreads, it's actually pretty good. So I'm excited to blast through this one day. It has someone's last name. It's so cute. Next up, we've got the Aosawa Murders by Riku Onda. This is a Japanese novel, like crime novel. I was recommended a different book by this author, and I don't remember what it's called, but when I went to Barnes & Noble, I was still working at Barnes & Noble. They didn't have the one I was looking for, so I grabbed this one. It's been like a year and I still haven't read it, but I don't know. Maybe I'll like it. I haven't had the best luck with like a lot of translated works. A lot of the translations end up feeling really like stilted, so I'm hoping that one of these days I'll find the right translated book that I've really loved. I had to let the cat out. She was getting way too chatty. Anyway, I'm hoping I'll end up liking this, and if I don't get around to it, soon-ish, like this year, I'll probably just donate it because obviously it's not calling to me. Next, we've got The Astonishing Color of After. This is one of my friend's favorite books of all time. I know I'm gonna love it. I know I will. Everyone seems to love this book, and I know the audiobook is narrated by Stephanie Hsu from Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is like my favorite movie. It's just a matter of like being in the right mindset for like parental death books. I feel like I've read so many of them in the like less than year that I've really been reading. One of these days, this is definitely high up on my TBR, mainly because my friend wants to buddy read it with me. She wants to read it for like the 5th time. So I can't wait to do that. That'll be fun. Sorry if the angle's a little different. I just had to clear up space on my phone, and also I had dinner. So picking up where I last left off is this book, House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielowski. I'm terrified of this book, not only because like I heard it's scary, that's not what I'm scared of. I'm terrified of like starting this book. I don't know how to read this. Like, where do I even start? I don't know. I found this at a library book sale. I've been like waffling on getting it for a while, and then I found this for $1 singular. So I couldn't pass it up, not for $1. I left it there for like a month, and every time I went, it was still there. So I picked it up. It felt like a sign. I'll get to it one day. It's just, it's so daunting. It's so daunting. Next on my list is The 10,000 Doors of January by Alex E. Harrow. I'll be honest, I haven't heard super great things about this, but I've never given Alex E. Harrow a try, and I think this cover is really pretty, and I got it for like $2. So one day, I'll get to this one day. Glasses are growing up, I'm worried about the glare. 7 Days in June by Tia Williams is one of the only romance books that has been recommended to me by like trusted friends, because I just really do not vibe with most of the romance that I see on like BookTube and stuff like that. Like, if I'm being totally honest, most of the Colleen Hoover girlies would have an aneurysm over the smut that exists on AO3. And so just flipping through some of those books when I worked at Barnes & Noble, I was just like, this is what has y'all's panties in a twist? Okay. But I've heard really good things about this. Once again, a thrift store find. And the nice thing about not spending a lot of money on these physical books is I don't feel bad or feel like I'm wasting my money when like I don't vibe with a book and end up just kind of donating it back to the same thrift store. And I've noticed they're gone the next time I go, so people are buying them, and I hope they have gone to homes that will love them a little more than I did. Next on my list is a series that I feel like I should have tackled a long time ago, but the length is a little daunting, but I have a feeling I'm gonna like it once I just like rip the band-aid off and start, and that is Gideon the Ninth and Harrow the Ninth. And Nona the Ninth is the third one that just came out, right? Yeah, I've yet to get into these. I bought this one used online, found this at my library book sale for $1, which, I mean, this is in pristine condition, so that felt like such a huge win. All I know about this is the blurb on the front that says lesbian necromancers explore a haunted gothic palace in space. And like, honestly, that sounds pretty good. And a lot of my friends have read it and they really, really love it. One of my friends even cosplayed. No, last Halloween, like the group of the friends cosplayed different characters from the Gideon the Ninth series, the Locked Tomb series. So I need to get to these. I know I need to get to these. These are definitely high on the priority list. The next one is Blacktop Wasteland by S.A. Cosby, another thrift store find. I've heard of this author. I think he did Razorblade Tears, which I also haven't read, but I've seen a lot of people on YouTube reading it. And I looked up the reviews for this one when I was at the thrift store, and it seems to have pretty good reviews. So I feel like this is going to be a good change of pace from the vibe that I typically go for. And yeah, it looks like it's on the shorter end, so I should be able to knock this out pretty easily. Next, I've got The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. I'm of two minds of this because I bought this like a year and a half ago, back when I was working at Barnes & Noble, and I just have never picked it up, and I feel like I'm gonna like it. But then I was gonna buddy read it with my friend, and my friend was like, I'm gonna be honest with you, I got like a couple chapters in, and then a character said the word awesome sauce, and I put the book down. And that makes me nervous that like it just feels really millennial. And like I'm a millennial, but I'm a young millennial, so a lot of the like millennial humor right over my head. I don't know if I'm gonna vibe with this. So what I'll probably do is just give it the first 50 pages, see how I'm vibing with it. Because for as many people that I've seen say that they didn't really click with this, I've seen a bunch of other people, including a bunch of my friends, who have ended up really loving this series. So I'll get to it soon. I need to work backwards, because this is probably like top 5 oldest books on my physical TBR. And here's the thing, Becky Chambers wrote the Psalm for the Wild Built series, which only has 2 of them, but I loved these. I loved them so much. So I know I like her writing. It's just a matter of like if I'm gonna like these characters, I think. So Sellout by Dan Ozzie seems very much up my alley. This is a nonfiction book about it says the major label feeding frenzy that swept punk, emo, and hardcore from 1994 to 2007. And that sounds like something I'm going to be really interested in. I was an emo kid in like 2005, 2006, 2007. So I'm curious how much this will touch on like the Fall Out Boys, the Panic at the Discos. I know that it touches on like Green Day, Blink-182. It says My Chemical Romance on the back. So yeah, I think this will be cool. I know this book came out recently that's an oral history of like the Fuel by Ramen scene, which is your Fall Out Boys, your Panic at the Discos, your Cobra Starships, you know, that kind of thing. And that one has like actual interviews with like Pete Wentz and stuff like that. And I think that one's gonna be even more up my alley, but I'm still very curious to see what this has to say. I do love a good nonfiction book. I don't read them as often as I thought I was going to when I first started reading. I thought I was gonna have a more equal split between fiction and nonfiction, but this will be a good one for when I'm in a nonfiction mood. The next one I'm actually planning on reading for the Full Moon Readathon that is happening at the beginning of August. So one of the prompts is it has to involve fire somehow, and I've had this on my shelves for a few months now, and this feels like the perfect opportunity. It's The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. First of all, can we have a moment for this cover? Oh my god, it's so pretty. But I've heard so many good things about this. I think it's YA, but this is like a hefty YA. Aside from that, I don't actually know what this is about, and you know, sometimes I really love just going into books completely blind, and so I think that's what I'm gonna do with this one. This copy is a little more well loved than some of the other used library copies I've gotten. This one's kind of gone through it. Oh, Tulsa, what did you do to this book? It's got a little dent there, but you know, that's okay. I'm really not precious when it comes to stuff like that, unless the cover is like fully torn in half or something. Like, I don't care. I think I talked about this one in my introductory video, but this is by far my favorite thrift store find I've ever had, and I got it a couple weeks ago. This is the Fairy Loot edition of The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. I think I might have heard of this beforehand, but it didn't like ring any bells. But this cover was just like so striking, and then as I was walking around with it, that's when I realized it has these beautiful sprayed edges. And then I got home and I was talking to my roommate, showing them all of the little details. Because here, let me show you I'll show you the inclusions in a second. That's without the dust jacket. This is one of the inside covers, and this is the other inside cover. Oh, it's so pretty. And then it came with this like letter from the author and this little illustration, which I believe is the same illustration as that, and then like a little fairy loot thing. But here's a really cool part. Didn't realize until I'd already gotten home. This is signed by the author. Like, I cannot stress enough that I got this book for $2.99. I looked online and I've seen this version of this book going for like $70, $80. I saw someone selling it for $150, which is wild. I didn't realize that these like Fairy Loot exclusives were so expensive resale. Man, this was such such a good find. Like, with a cover like this, I really, really hope I love it. Next on my list are a couple more thrift finds, and they are Gone Girl and Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn. Jillian? I've heard both ways. I do not know. I should look that up. So I've never read one of her books before. One of my friends loves them and is trying to get me to read them, and I'm going to. I really do want to. It's just other things have kind of been pushed to the top of my priority list. I've seen the movie Gone Girl. Do I remember much about it? No. So, like, I feel like I know maybe, like, one of the twists, but aside from that, I'm kind of gonna be along for the ride, and I really trust my friend's reading taste, so if she really, really loves them, then I feel like I'm gonna enjoy these as well. The next is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I have actually never read a YA John Green novel. I watched him on YouTube all the time growing up. I loved his most recent nonfiction book, The Anthropocene Reviewed. This one. I loved it. I believe I have a signed copy. I have a signed copy of it. This was a podcast before it was a book, and so by the time the book came out, I'd already listened to most of this book, but I re-listened to the audiobook for this, which is essentially just the podcast. I loved this. And so whenever I saw this at the thrift store in like near perfect condition, I was like, okay, maybe it's time for me to give his YA stuff a shot. I don't think his older YA stuff, older as in like from years past, I don't think I'm gonna vibe with those, but I've seen people say that like even if you don't like those, you might still like this one. So I match. I think I'll give it a shot. Why not? I know I like his writing. If his writing is anything like it was in The Anthropocene Reviewed, I think I'm gonna vibe with it. All right, we have finished one side. This is The Vanishing Half. I feel like everyone and their grandma on BookTube has read this already. I know I'm gonna like this. I know it's gonna be impactful for me. I think this cover is beautiful. This cover is like the best version of this like cover design trend of like the colorful blobs. I think this one is definitely the best looking of the bunch. So the next one is an interesting one because I had never heard of it, but I'd heard of this author and I'd read from this author before. So this is My Grandmother Asked Me to Tell You She's Sorry by Frederick Bachman. I found this at a local like used bookstore, the ones where there's just like boxes and piles of books everywhere and it's like going through like a cave of like it's so messy. And what caught my eye about this is it says signed edition on the front, and sure enough, Frederick Bachman signed this copy. And I got it for a couple bucks. And I really did like A Man Called Ove, and I watched the movie, which was a surprisingly good adaptation of the book. Like I read the book and then like a couple weeks later watched the movie. Anyway, I thought the translation was done really well. Like the issue I've had with a lot of translated works is that it feels very stilted and it feels like almost robotic. Like it's taken away a lot of the personality from the writing, but in A Man Called Ove, I didn't have that problem at all, and so I'm hoping that the rest of his stuff is the same way. I really appreciate the translator who is still keeping a lot of heart in the novel. So yeah, that was just a cool signed find. I'm gonna move over now. Oh. So next on my list is, I've technically read some of them, but not all of them. So I don't know how many people have listened to Welcome to Night Vale. I've listened to maybe the first 50, 60 episodes, probably like 3-4 times by now. I just kind of end up starting it over, and I've never made it past that. But I really love it regardless. Like it's the perfect amount of like weird and funny, and I feel like I was very influenced by it when it first started coming out. But these are the scripts. Basically, these are like the episode transcripts. So we've got Mostly Void, Partially Stars, which is the first volume. This one I have gone through. I'm so close to finishing it. I don't know why I just like stopped. I could finish this easily in a couple hours. In this one, I went through and tabbed a bunch of stuff, but when I first got these a couple years ago, when I was back in my Welcome to Night Vale era, I went through and highlighted a bunch of stuff. Like this is probably the only book I've ever like taken a highlighter to, but there's just so many bits of this book that stick out to me, and the writing is just so clever and so weird and unique, and I've just never experienced anything like that. And I read, so the Night Vale guys have written 3 like full-length novels that take place in the universe, but they are not like episodes of the show. Like, this is one of them. This is just called Welcome to Night Vale. It was the first one, and the voice that they have carried from the podcast into the writing of these novels is astounding. Like, this could not have been written by anyone else but the people who write the podcast. And I ended up loving this so much more than I expected to. I thought it was gonna be a cash grab, but this is like genuinely good. And the second one too is called It Devours. This is the second one. Oh, these purple sprayed edges. So pretty. These were fantastic. So I just really love the Night Vale universe. I want to make an effort to maybe marathon all of these, which is essentially just marathoning the podcast. So that one's Mostly Void, Partially Stars. This one is The Great Glowing Coils of the Universe. And I think I've listened to the podcast up through these 2. And so these are going to be totally new to me. This is The Buying of Lot 37 and Who's a Good Boy. This cover is so good. Yeah, what a delight. I'm excited to get to these. Actually, I'm gonna break the stack real quick. So this is the 3rd novel in the Welcome to Night Vale series. It's the faceless old woman who secretly lives near your home, who is a character in the podcast. I don't know why I haven't gotten to this yet. Maybe I'll do like a solid week where I just like read all of these transcripts and then follow it up with the last novel to finish them out and just have like a Welcome to Night Vale themed reading week. So with those out of the way, next on my list are 2 memoirs. So this is Seeing Ghosts by Kat Chow and House of Sticks by Lai Tran. And these were actually recommended to me by the author of What My Bones Know, which is by far one of my favorite nonfiction books. This is a memoir about somebody who's suffering from CPTSD, complex PTSD, and her journey through not only healing, but like trying to find the right therapist for her. Because she keeps on going to these people being like, fix me. And they keep going, it's not that easy. And she's like, why not? It's just fantastic. And so at the end of last year, I had tweeted that this was one of my favorite books of the year. I was asking for more similar recommendations, and Miss Stephanie Fu must have been looking through her mentions because she ended up replying to me and recommended me both of these. I've started this one, but I wasn't paying enough attention for me to like consider it started yet. But I think these are gonna be great. If these have the similar vibes as to like What My Bones Know or Crying in H Mart, then I feel like I'm gonna like them. I just feel like I need to be in the right mood for books like these. So Punch Me Up to the Gods by Brian Broom is also a memoir. I saw Jesse on YouTube recommend this, and then I went to Strand Bookstore in New York City and looked in the used sale section outside and ended up finding the exact book I had just marked down as wanting to read. I feel like this one's going to break my heart. It sounds sad, but I'm very excited. I feel like this is going to be fantastic. So in keeping with the theme of podcasts, I am a huge fan of 99% Invisible with Roman Mars. His TED Talk on flag design is one of my favorite things on the internet, like unironically. I don't know if I've mentioned anywhere that I'm a graphic designer, like by trade. But yeah, so I love dorky stuff like that, about like the hidden design of the things around us. I've been an avid listener for years and years and years. And so a few years ago, they put out a book version. I don't think it's going to be like a one-to-one comparison to the podcast, like how the Anthropocene Reviewed or those Night Vale books are. I think this one has a lot more to it. But yeah, no idea why I haven't gotten to this one. I don't think it's going to be a very long read, and I believe the audiobook is on Scribd, so maybe I'll bump this up to the top of my priority list. I think this one is also a signed copy. Yeah, there it is. If you haven't seen the TED Talk that Roman Mars did about flag design, please, for the love of God, go watch it. It's like 15 minutes long, and you will never look at flags the same way again. You are going to look up your city or your state's flags, and you're going to be so disappointed by how little thought was put into it. I have so many feelings about flags. Moving right along, we've got Circe I have not read The Song of Achilles. I'm either gonna love it or I'm gonna hate it. Most people love it, but one of my best friends did not make it halfway through because they said that it was like way too purple prosy for them. And so I've been like weirdly scared to pick it up. But when I see Circe at a thrift store for $1.99, I'm gonna pick it up. And I've heard that people who didn't love The Song of Achilles ended up liking Circe and vice versa. So I'm very curious to see how I'm gonna feel about this, how I'm gonna feel about maybe like Greek retellings in general. Maybe I should make a week of it. But I loved Greek myths as a kid. And so I'm really hoping I end up liking this like subgenre of Greek retellings. Because if I do end up liking that, I feel like that opens like a whole new world to me. There's gonna be a lot of books for me to give a try. All right, the next one I actually got at Barnes & Noble during the half-off hardcover sale. This is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy I. Lin. This cover, oh my god, is so pretty. So what I know about this one is that it's about a family who does magic with like tea. Like they brew tea and that is the magic and there's some kind of competition. I can't wait to read this. This feels like it's going to be a little more dense with the world building, so I need to be in the right headspace. With a lot of these books, I can sit down and read when I'm having like a bad brain day because I've got the audiobook to give me company, but this one I think I definitely want to like pay close attention to and like really soak up the world building and everything. And I've also heard that the sequel isn't very good, which seems to be a theme I've noticed with a lot of books, that like a lot of people like give 5 stars to the first in a series and then the second or third end up not being worth their time. So it wouldn't surprise me if I read this, loved it, and then never picked up the sequel. Unless it ends on a cliffhanger. I don't know if it does. I hope not, because I would love to pretend this is just a standalone. Oh, this one's a booktube darling. Finley Donovan is Killing It by L. Casamano. This is another one that I feel like everyone has read already, and I'm very late to the curve. And I wasn't sure how much I'd like it, but it seems like every week I'm finding another video of someone talking about how much they loved this, and then one of my friends in real life was also like, oh, I loved it. I don't know about the sequels, but I really love the first one. And so, in typical me fashion, when I find this for $1.99 at a thrift store, I'm gonna grab it. I feel like I'm gonna love this. I don't know what I'm scared of. It feels out of my wheelhouse, and I'll be honest, this cover is so bad. I just don't love it. It's a stock image on Adobe Stock. Books and Lala literally found the like pack that this is in, and I don't know, I have some opinions on that. Like, this gives me the same like ick as all of the romance books that have the really crappily drawn vector people on the covers that took the cover designers half an hour to use the pen tool. It's so bad. Like, this is one of the better ones, and I still think this is egregious. And I loved this book, but the reason it took me so long to pick up this book is because of the cover. Oh, it's cheap. I have a lot of opinions on the state of romance, contemporary romance, and their book covers. But like, it's bad. Why are there no details? Like, no shading? Not a sliver of shading? I don't know, I feel like I could do this in an afternoon, and I feel like book covers deserve a little bit more love in their cover designs. I mean, like, comparing that to what I just held up, like, one of them looks like a school child doodled on it. Anyway, all that to say, I think I'm gonna like it. I just need to get over how I feel about the book cover, and I'm very excited to read this. I think I have a future vlog challenge planned where I can fit this one in. I don't know if I have any McElroy brother fans out here. If you are, you're gonna appreciate these. If not, here's a little backstory. The McElroy brothers are 3 dudes from West Virginia who have multiple podcasts. So like the main one is called My Brother and Me. They're just the funniest people on earth. They're so funny, and like funny without being offensive. Their main goal is just to make each other laugh, and that makes it even funnier. So they have My Brother and Me, and then they have like offshoots that the 3 of them have like with their wives. And one of them, Justin, the oldest brother, his wife is a doctor, and they have a podcast called Sawbones, which goes through like weird and wacky medical history, and you know, she's the one kind of leading the front and he's just adding funny commentary throughout the whole thing. But they did like a book, a Sawbones book, and Justin and Sydney are just the cutest couple. So I need to blast through this. It's a short one. I feel like it's not going to take me very long to get through, but I love my mom and dad. And one of the other podcasts that they have, and hear me out, it is essentially a Dungeons and Dragons podcast where the three of them play with their dad. And their dad, Cliff, is also very funny. And it started as this like goof of an episode while one of them was on paternity leave, and turned into one of the most beautiful pieces of storytelling I've ever heard. Like, it started as such a joke that one of the characters is named Taco, like Taako, and it's phenomenal. And so the first main arc, it's called the Balance arc, and that is the one that they are mostly known for. That was the lightning in the bottle. They've never really quite captured that again. A lot of the other seasons are fun, but like the Balance arc, that is the arc of the Adventure Zone. So their dad, quite a few years back, started creating graphic novels out of the Dungeons and Dragons podcast. And so I've read the first 4, so I am adding the 5th one that I just recently got to my TBR. I need to read this one. I think I want to do a whole read through of these again because I don't think they'll take very much time, but this story is phenomenal. The characters are phenomenal. If you have any interest at all in comedy podcasts and or Dungeons and Dragons and or comics, I mean, it just has such a wide appeal. I didn't give a shit about D&D until I started listening to that podcast, and I learned how to play along with them. It's fantastic. Anyway, that's my McElroy soapbox. All right, home stretch. Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. Another great thrift find. I feel like I saw this around BookTube quite a bit, like a couple years ago. When did this book come out? 2019. So it's been a few years. I saw it enough that when I saw the cover, I was like, oh, might as well pick this up. A nice hardcover. Yeah, I feel like I need to do some kind of vlog that's like YouTuber favorites rewind of like not current YouTuber favorites, but like YouTuber favorites from like 4 years ago. I feel like this would work, and The Vanishing Half would work really well with that. Oh, here's a quick one. I have the manga version of The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. I've played the game, but I'm not much of a manga reader. But when I saw this, it just like looks too cool for me to not at least give a shot. So yeah, nothing much more to say about that. If you play video games at all, you've played Ocarina of Time. So this one's a fun one. So this is Alone Out Here by Riley Redgate. I actually went to school with this author. I went to elementary school and middle school with her, and her real name is Rhiannoch Robinson, and she is now about to put out another YA romance with her sister, I believe, under her actual name, as opposed to Riley Redgate. She has quite a few other YA books under her belt, but I haven't had the chance to read them. I remember reading part of 7 Ways We Lie way back in the day, maybe like 2015, and I enjoyed it. I just wasn't much of a reader, and so I put it down and never picked it back up. But this is her most recent one, which I've heard is Lord of the Flies but in space, and it just sounded really cool. I haven't spoken to her in a very, very long time, but I'm just like so proud of her. At one point it was very it was an interesting feeling being a bookseller and selling my classmates' books. But I'm excited to give this one a try. Man, that's just cool. She was always really nice. All right, last little pile. So these are the Dark Horse collections of comics. And I'm not much of a comics person, but you'll see why in a second. I got these when I was working at Barnes & Noble, but I mean, come on. It's so pretty. And they're humongous. I'm a huge My Chemical Romance fan, and by extension, a huge Gerard Way fan. And so I remember when these started coming out, like years and years and years and years ago. And I've obviously seen the show. I do love the show. And I've read pretty much everything in here, but I want to give it a proper reread in this like honker of a book. And then the last 2 on the list. If you are not a My Chemical Romance fan, one of their albums was themed around this like squad called the Fabulous Killjoys, and I didn't realize that he had made graphic novels based on them. So this is one of them, and this is the other one. So I feel like I'm gonna love them. I don't know much about the Killjoys lore. Like, there are some people who know that lore front to back just from like the music videos and the promotional materials and stuff. I actually don't know much about it. I've somehow managed to just like avoid that completely. So I think this will be fun to go into, especially with the mental image of like each of the members as a character. They would dress up like those characters. It is just very iconic, you know, very 2011 emo kid core. All right, that's all of them. That's it. I'm done. Good lord, that took forever. But anyway, yeah, thank you for watching. I don't know how long this video is gonna be, but it's probably not gonna be short. I am gonna put my bookshelves back together because they look destroyed. Anyway, I'll see y'all in the next video. Have a good one.